Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi Pesachim Samach Tes. We are 3 lines from the bottom of Samach Chesamad Beis, beginning with Amar of Ashi Ulamai Deka Amar. Rabbi Yehuda tells us in the Mishnah, not only does the Shechita of the Korban Pesach justify overriding of Shabbos, the Shechita Deicha Shabbos, likewise the Machshire Mitzvah Deicha Shabbos, any mitzvah which in itself is Deicha Shabbos, whether it's Korban Pesach or Milah, as discussed in the Mishnah back in Shabbos. Just as these things are Deicha Shabbos, their accessories, their preparations are also Deicha Shabbos, even though you could have done them before Shabbos. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. He says, what you need to do on Shabbos is Deicha Shabbos, but something which was avoidable does not justify Chilul Shabbos. Rav Elazar says, well, if Shechita, which is a Malacha, is Deicha Shabbos, certainly the Isuri, the Rabbanon, the Shvus, are Deicha Shabbos, even though you could have done it before Shabbos, for instance, transporting the animal through the Shusarab and bringing it from outside the Tchum. Rabbi Shua responded, well look, Ahan Yom Tov, you have a Malacha, which is Deicha Yom Tov, you could cook, you can bake, but you can't do things which are Asam Rabbanon, which could have been done before Yom Tov. So you see that not necessarily just because you can do the Malacha, does that also allow you to do the accessories, the Hachanes, even though they're only Asam Rabbanon? Says Rabbi Yehuda, how can you compare Yom Tov, which is only a Rishus, it's a non-mitzvah activity, and therefore it's also there, but Pesach, which is a mitzvah menater, just as the mitzvah itself, the hakrov itself is Deicha Shabbos, likewise the machshire mitzvah. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Ashi, 3 lines from the bottom. Amar Rav Ashi l'may deka, Amar Rabbi Yehuda nami. Yom Tov rishus. According to this response, Rabbi Yehuda responded, you can't compare Yom Tov, which is a non-mitzvah activity. Simchas Yom Tov, according to Rabbi Yehuda, isn't necessarily mandated menater. Therefore, over there we can understand that the Isur Shvus is not allowed to be done on Yom Tov, as opposed to Pesach, which is a mitzvah min haTorah. So according to Rabbi Yezer's response, we can actually take that distinction between Yom Tov, which is merely a Rishus, and the Korban Pesach, which is a mitzvah, that distinction could actually be used to disprove Rabbi Yezer himself. L'umay deka Rabbi Yehuda nami, Yom Tov rishus islay pircha. We can use that distinction, that very chiluk, to form a basis for a kavachaymer, which will challenge and disprove Rabbi Yezer. Rabbi Yezer holds that something which is Rabbanon that could have been done before Shabbos, still you can do it on Shabbos to help out in the Akrovas Korban Pesach. That's Rabbi Yezer's opinion. We can disprove that, we can challenge that, using a Kavachomer, which is based on the very distinction that Rabbi Yezer presented. How is that? Says the Gemara, Islay Pirch. We're going to challenge Rabbi Yezer using his distinction. Uma Yom Tov. Shehitir by Malacha Shal Rishos. Because since we find that Yom Tov, which seems to be more kal, it's less severe, since we find that even a Malacha Shal Rishos is mutter, you can cook and bake, even though it's a non-mitzvah activity, according to Rabbi Yezer, still, even though you have that heter, shehitir by Malacha Shal Rishos, still lehitir shvus she'ima, the accompanying shvus was not mutter, bringing the animal from outside the tchum, and Yom Tov is not mutter, despite the fact that Yom Tov seems to have a leniency. You can do even a malacha of a rishus, a non-mitzvah malacha, still you can't do the shvus, which could have been done before Yom Tov. Certainly, Shabbos, shelo yitir ba'al malacha shal mitzvah. Of course, Shabbos, where you only find that the Torah was mater malacha shal mitzvah, the Shechita, the Korban Pesach, etc. You can't do a non-mitzvah malach on Shabbos. So certainly Shabbos, which seems to stand higher than Yom Tov, you can only do a malacha shal mitzvah. Of course, ein edin shloi tater shvus she'ima. Of course, there's no allowance to execute the shvus together with the malacha shel mitzvah, speaking about a shvus that could have been done beforehand. So it turns out that Rabbi Elazar's distinction between Korban Pesach on Shabbos, which is a mitzvah, and the Simchas Yom Tov, which is merely rishus, that very chiluk can be used, so to speak, against him as a basis for a kal v'chomer to disprove and challenge Rabbi Elazar's shita. Rabbi Elezer allows the shvus to be done on Shabbos, even though you could have done it before Shabbos. No! If you can't do it on Yom Tov, despite the fact that Yom Tov seems to be less severe, less chomer than Shabbos, because look, you can even do a malacha shel rishus on Yom Tov. Still, you can't do the shvus, which was avoidable. Of course, Shabbos, which is more chomer, which stands higher than Yom Tov, would not allow the shvus to be done if it was avoidable. Continues the Gemara, Rabbi Elazar. So how's Rabbi Eliezer going to respond to that? Doesn't this prove his very shita? Shvus the mitzvah other flay. He holds it's not a proper kal v'chomer. Why? Because although on Yom Tov you find that a shvus is not allowed. Yeah, because that's a shvus of a non-mitzvah. It's a rishus. But when it comes to our case, we're trying to bring a Korban Pesach and also do some hachonis, the machshirei Korban Pesach. So although they're shvus d'Rabbanan, which could have been done beforehand, still the Chachamim did not restrict it, did not apply an Isser, because at the end of the day, it's part and parcel of the mitzvah. It's preparing the mitzvah. It's a shvus the mitzvah. And just as the mitzvah itself is Deicha Shabbos, likewise, any accompanying activity is Deicha Shabbos as well. Tanya will into the Brisa, which will describe another version of the debate between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Elazar, Umali im docha mashir mitzvah shela'achar shchitas haShabbos. Look, we have a kal v'chomer. Im doch machshir mitzvah shela'achar shchitas haShabbos. If we find that even the machshir mitzvah, the accessories of the mitzvah, we're speaking about the Korban Pesach, which are taking place after the shchita. Rashi says it's referring to michay krovav. We described yesterday the puncturing of the intestines, which are done, even though it's a shvus, and even though the carbon was already nishchat and nizrak, it's not necessary for the carbon. It's simply coming to protect the content of the basar. It's for tzarech achila. So it's already after the shchita. It is Deicha Shabbos. This avidle mitzvah, even though the mitzvah is already done, still you can do that shvus. Lo yitchu machshir mitzvah shelifnei shchitas haShabbos. Shall we not say, based on that the machshir mitzvah, which are meant to precede and prepare the shchita, transporting the animal from outside the tchum, etc., should they not also be Deicha Shabbos? Of course, they should be. Amar Rabbi Akiva, no, you can't compare. The maliyim doch machshir mitzvah shela'achar shchitas haShabbos. We can explain very well why the machshir mitzvah, which are following the shchita, are Deicha Shabbos. You know why? Shari dochsa shchitas haShabbos. Because the shchita was already Deicha Shabbos. That Shabbos was already, so to speak, pushed away and overridden through the shchita. So yeah, anything that follows, that's part of the process, is mutter as well. But you can compare it to something which is in advance of the shchita. Toimar, shall you apply the same halacha and say, Yitchu machshir mitzvah shelafnei shchitas haShabbos? Shall we say that the machshir mitzvah which precede the shchita, transporting the animal from outside the tchum, etc., which are before the actual shchita, shall we say there as well, it should be Deichas Shabbos? Toimar yitchu machshir mitzvah shelafnei shchitas haShabbos sheloi dochsa shchitas haShabbos. Where in that case the shchita has not yet overridden the Shabbos. You can't compare one to the other. So the day has been overridden, fine, so you continue the process. But here we're speaking about doing things before the shchita. Another argument that Rekiva presents to Rabbi Elazar. We can't allow him to be Deicha Shabbos by doing things before the shchita. Shema yimtza zevach pasal. What's the basis? What is your right for doing these things before the shchita? Because it's preparing for the hakrava. But you know what might happen? Shema yimtza zevach pasal. It might turn out that the karm will be pasal, the shchita will become pasal. V'nimtza mechal es haShabbos la'afreya. It will turn out that retroactively he was mechal Shabbos for naught. So we cannot allow these activities to be performed before the shechita. If that's the case, if you're concerned about the carbon becoming puzzle, then mishchat naminil nishchat. We shouldn't even allow the shechita as well. Shem yimtza zerach puzzle, perhaps the carbon become puzzle. V'nimtza mechal es ha-Shabbos limafreya, and it will turn out that his shechita, his malacha was a Yisr Shabbos. So apparently, we don't have to be concerned about that possibility. Ella ha amar liberation. Indeed, Rabbi Akiva presented this argument first. We can't allow a shvus to be Deicha Shabbos preceding, in advance of the shechita. Perhaps the shechita and the hakrova will become possible. So that's what he presented first. Uparch, and then Rabbi Lezer responded and refuted that. Well, you can't be concerned about that possibility. So then he proceeded to the next argument. V'adur amale, and then he told him, Hach, the other argument, the mali im dachu. Yeah, if the machshir mitzvah after the shechita justify Chil Shabbos, that's because the Shabbos has been overridden by the shechita, as opposed to machshir mitzvah, which are preceding the shechita, in which case you have no right to do them on Shabbos. Continues the Gemara. Getting back to the Mishnah of Heishiv Rabbi Akiva Amar Zot Echiach. So again, Rabbi Lezer says anything necessary for the hakrov of the Korban Pesach, even if it was avoidable, you could have done it before Shabbos, since it's part of the process, whether it's before the shechita or after the shechita, you can be Deicha Shabbos. Rabbi Akiva responded with a raya from Haza'ah. We see that we don't allow them to be mazat to sprinkle the afer of the paraduma for the sake of a tamei on his seventh day to enable him to eat the Korban Pesach. Although it's only a shvus d'Rabbanan, and it's for the sake of mitzvah. So you see, not necessarily does everything justify Chil Shabbos. Rashi explained because the hazah and the person isn't really part of the hakrava process. Rabbi Lezer responded, well, just the opposite. If shechita is Deicha Shabbos, hazah, which is merely d'Rabbanan, certainly is Deicha Shabbos. Rabbi Akiva responded to that by saying, well, maybe just the opposite. Just as hazah is not Deicha Shabbos, because I know that for a fact. Shechita as well can't be Deicha Shabbos. And Rabbi Lezer responded, Akiva, how can you say that? We have a pasuk that, of course, Korban Pesach is Deicha Shabbos. Continues the Gemara. Tanya, Amar le Rabbi Lezer. Rabbi Lezer responded to Rabbi Akiva. Akiva, b'shchita shaftani. You've responded to me using shchita, and it wasn't in a way of gichuch, in a davar schaik v'gichuch. It wasn't in a serious manner. Meaning, Rabbi Akiva, when he responded, well, perhaps just as hazah is not Deicha Shabbos, shchita won't either be Deicha Shabbos. He didn't mean it seriously, because he also knew that shchita is Deicha Shabbos. The Gemara will tell us that he was trying to give him a message, trying to point it out to him. Look, I learned from you. Rabbi Akiva learned from you, from Rabbi Lezer, that hazah is not Deicha Shabbos. If he presented it in this manner, well, just as shchita is not Deicha Shabbos, just as hazah is not Deicha Shabbos, shchita as well. And Rabbi Lezer took offense to that. It seemed like he was negating him and presenting it in this exaggerated manner. You responded to me in this disrespectful manner regarding shchita. Your death should be b'shchita, and indeed he was killed by the Romans. So Rabbi Akiva responded, Rebbe, he's addressing Rabbi Lezer, Al tachpireni, don't be in denial. Don't deny what I'm saying. Bish as hadin, while we're involved here in this debate. Meaning, kach mekublani memcha. This is what I received from you. Hazah shvusi, that hazah is a drabon, ve'ena deichas haShabbos. So that's what he's trying to point out to him. Of course, Rabbi Akiva knew that shchita of Korban Pesach is deichas Shabbos. We learned it from Psukim. He's simply trying to make a statement. You, Rabbi Lezer, are proposing that hazah is Deicha Shabbos. It is from you that I learned that it is not Deicha Shabbos. That's why Rabbi Akiva presented it in this exaggerated manner. Well, perhaps just as hazah is not Deicha Shabbos, shchita as well. He didn't mean it seriously. He just meant to highlight and bring out the point of that hazah is not Deicha Shabbos, which is a lesson that Rabbi Akiva learned from Rabbi Lezer himself. Says the Gemara, if that's the case, If Rabbi Lezer was one of Torah to Rabbi Akiva, my Tamakahadabe, why is he reverting? Why was Rabbi Lezer Chayzer? And now held that Hazah is Deicha Shabbos. Ama'ula, Rabbi Lezer ki Agmarei, when Rabbi Lezer taught him that Hazah can't be done on Shabbos, it was in a different context. It was not with respect to Korban Pesach. Hazah the Truma Agmarei. It was with respect to being Mazadeh for Para, to allow a kohen to eat Truma. And that can't be done on Shabbos. You know why? The Truma Gufa Ledachi Shabbos. Because the actual hafresh of Truma is not Deicha Shabbos. You can wait till Matzah Shabbos. So eating Truma is not so crucial. It doesn't override Shabbos. Likewise, the Hazah, to be Matar the kohen, to enable to eat Truma, doesn't override Shabbos. So he's speaking about Truma, not regarding Pesach. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Kiva Nami, Ki Oizvei, Azad Truma Oizvei. So Rabbi Kiva as well, when he responded to Rabbi Lezer and said that the Hazah is not a Shabbos, Ki Oizvei, Azad Truma Oizvei. He was challenging him from Hazah to enable a person to eat Truma. She mitzvah, which is for the sake of mitzvah, to eat Truma, v'hi mishum shvus, and despite the fact that it's only a Issad Rabbanon, it is not a Shabbos. So that's all he was trying to point out to him. You taught me that Hazah, to enable Truma, is not allowed on Shabbos. V'hu savar. But when Rabbi Lezer responded and said, no, Hazah is Deicha Shabbos, he figured that Rabbi Kiva was referencing Hazah to enable a person to eat Korban Pesach. That's a different story altogether. V'hu savar. Rabbi Kiva thought Hazah the Pesach komoisively, that he was presenting him with Hazah to enable a person to eat Korban Pesach, and that cannot be done on Shabbos. And on that, Rabbi Lezer disagreed. Rabbi Lezer knew good and well that Hazah for Truma is not allowed. He was speaking about Hazah on Pesach. Hazah to allow a person to eat the Korban Pesach, and that's allowed. V'hu zavar. Hazah the Pesach komoisively. That explains the back and forth between Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Kiva. Mosiv Rava. So Rabbi asked like this: how can you say that it was a misunderstanding? Rabbi Kiva was coming from Hazah of Truma. Rabbi Lezer misunderstood, thought he was speaking about Hazah of Pesach, and really, in effect, there was no difference of opinion. They're speaking about different things. Masiv Rabba. Take a look at this Bryce. Heishiv Rabbi Kiva v'Amar. Rabbi Kiva responded to Rabbi Lezer. You say anything to enable a mitzvah as mutter? He responded and said, "Va'amar hazah tmei meis." Teichiach. The hazah on a tmei meis will prove the point. Shechol shvi shaloi lias b'Shabbos. U'be'erev Pesach. We're speaking about a tmei meis whose seventh day fell out on Shabbos, which is also erev Pesach. She mitzvah, but certainly for the sake of mitzvah, to enable him to eat in Korban Pesach. V'mishum shvus, and it's only a issad rabban ve'ein derechas Shabbos. So we see that not everything for the sake of the mitzvah, for the sake of the Pesach, justifies Chilul Shabbos. Rabbi Kiva clearly made reference to Hazah of Pesach. He wasn't coming from Truma, he was coming from Pesach. So it's pretty clear that Rabbi Kiva learned from Rabbi Lezer that even Hazah on Pesach is not Deicha Shabbos. Ela v'adai Hazah the Pesach agmri. Says, "Mo, you're right." It's pretty clear that Rabbi Kiva learned from Rabbi Lezer that even Hazah, for the sake of Pesach, cannot be done on Shabbos. And that's what Rabbi Kiva was presented to Rabbi Lezer. You look, you yourself taught me this halach. If that's the case, what was the machlekes? If Rabbi Lezer himself taught this to Rabbi Kiva, my time perchle. Why was Rabbi Lezer asking from this halacha? Why was Rabbi Lezer suggesting that Hazah is mutter? He himself taught the Isser. My time perchle Rabbi Lezer. Says the Rabbi Lezer, Gemari is akrele. Rabbi Lezer forgot this halacha, that you cannot do Hazah even to allow Korban Pesach. V'asa Rabbi Kiva lat kuri Gemari. And Rabbi Kiva was gently trying to remind him this halacha, this thing that he taught. V'nemeli behedya. So why didn't he tell it to him outright? Savar, he figured, lav oirach ara. It's not appropriate to challenge him outright, and therefore he did it in a roundabout way. Says the Gemara, but truthfully speaking, why really Can't you be mazed the Efer Para on a person? What's wrong with it? Va'azo my time l'dachi Shabbos. What's wrong with it? Michti, let's take a look. Totuli be'amu. You're simply moving around this water. What's wrong with that? Titchi Shabbos, Shum Pesach. You can do it on Shabbos to allow the Pesach. Amar Rabba. The Chachamim apply to Isser. You know what? They were concerned. Gzeira shemitlena v'yavirena arba ames b'shus rabim. We find this concept by Shofar and Shabbos by Megillah. There's a concern that this fellow might pick up the Efer Para, carry through Shus Rabim. V'yavirena dal damet Shus Rabim, which is a daraisa. Therefore, Chacham said you cannot use the Efer Para on Shabbos. And the Abri. Now, according to Rabbi Yehuda, what's the concern? What's the worst thing that might happen? To carry through Shus Rabim? What's wrong with that? To Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Achshir mitzvah dechnas Shabbos. He holds that anything to enable a mitzvah which in itself is dechnas Shabbos, like Korban Pesach, like Milah, only machshirim, even if they involve a malacha, you can do it on Shabbos. So what's the worst thing that can happen? I'll carry the Efer Para through Shus Rabim. So be it. Amri, they answer like this: Hani Mili. This heter to prepare for a mitzvah, that is only hecha de gavra gufei chazi. When the person is at a state that he is roy, he is enabled for the mitzvah. V'rami chayuvale, in which case there's an obligation on him. If you have a baby awaiting a bris milah, you can go ahead and carry the knife to Shus Rabim. Aval hacha de gavra gufei lechazi. But in this case, where the person is not yet roy for Korban Pesach, he's tummy. Lo yirami chiyuv alei. In this case, he has no chiyuv. You can't have a Pesach if you're tummy. So if there's no chiyuv, then there's no reason to justify Chilul Shabbos, to come to his aid and benefit him. So that explains why we don't allow hazah on Pesach, even to enable a person to eat the Korban Pesach. Oh, generally, according to Rabbi Yehuda, even a malacha is allowed, but that's only when we have somebody to do the malacha for, a person who is chayiv in that mitzvah, as opposed to a tamei on Erev Pesach, who as yet is not chayiv, because he's only a tamei. Oh, if he's not chayiv, he's not a candidate for Korban Pesach, in which case you cannot do a malacha for his sake. Amar Rabba. Says Rabba, based on this concept, if you're not roy, you're not chayiv, and therefore if you're not chayiv, you can't do a malacha to help him. According to Rabbi Yehuda, a very paradoxical situation will arouse. Katan bari, if you have an infant who is healthy and is a perfect candidate for the bris milah, you can go and heat up some water. They used to bathe the child prior to his bris milah with hot water to galvanize him and strengthen him for the in preparation for the upcoming traumatic experience. Says Rabbah, a katan bari, a healthy child who is roy for the bris, for him you can heat up water to strengthen him and enable the meal on Shabbos. Why the chazile? Because it is roy for him. Why is it roy for him? Because he's healthy and he's roy for the bris. So go ahead and prepare water for him. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you can even do preparations which involve a malacha. Katan chayla, but a sickly child who as yet cannot undergo the bris milah experience. He needs to be bathed. In this case, you cannot bathe. You cannot heat him up. Why? You can't heat up water to strengthen him. To do the bris milah. Why? Because it's not right for him. Why is it not right for him? Because he, at this point, is a chayla. Before you bathe him, he's not right for bris milah. If that's the case, then he's not chayiv in bris. He's only right after you bathe him. But you're at the point of prior to bathing. At this point, he's part from bris. If he's part from bris, then there's no justification to cook up any water for him. Because the heter to do a malach machshirim is only when the person is a bar chiyuva. a katan choyle at this point is not chayiv in bris, because he's not roi for bris. So it's a paradox. If you have a healthy child, you can heat up some water for him, because he can undergo the bris milah experience even without the hot water. So he's a child who is roi for bris. If he's roi for bris, he's chayiv in bris. If he's chayiv in bris, you can do machshirim for that mitzvah. But a katan who's a choyle, who needs to be bathed to enable the bris, well, you can't heat up water for him, because at this point, prior to bathing, he's not roi for bris. He's not chayiv in bris. If he's not chayiv in bris, you can't do a malacha to enable it. Amar Rav says, Rav, I disagree. If he's really a healthy and strong child, why would you need the hot water to strengthen him? Elam Rav apparently says, Rav, all babies are considered sickly when it comes to milah. They need to be strengthened using this bathing procedure. If that's the case, echad katan bari, ve'echad katan choyle, whether he's a katan who is a healthy child or a sickly baby, in either case, you cannot heat up the hot water to strengthen him, to do the milah. Why? Because he is not roi for bris until you bathe him. So Rabbi says all infants need to be bathed to enable the bris. If that's the case, prior to bathing, he's not yet chazi. He's not a roi for the bris, and therefore he's not chayiv in bris. There's no justification for cooking up water for this fellow who's not roi and not chayiv. Apparently, the only way you can do a bris on Shabbos, says Rav, is by preparing the water before Shabbos. So once you have preheated hot water, you take that hot water. On Shabbos, you bathe him. Now, you've strengthened him and prepared him for the bris milah experience, and now you can proceed to bris milah. Abai disagrees with Rabbah, who says that if he's not suitable for the mitzvah, then he's not chayiv. We have a brayso. Oral shalei mol onish karis. Divei Rabbi Elazar. An oral who didn't bother addressing his arla, he didn't get a bris milah on Erev Pesach, and as a result could not bring the korban Pesach, he gets cursed. Divrei Rabbi Eliezer. This is Rabbi Eliezer's sheet. Now here we have a situation. V'ha'acha, the gavra gufi lechazi, person is not roi at this point for the korban Pesach. In his current state, he is unsuitable for Pesach. He's a aral. Uktani anish kares. And Rabbi Eliezer himself says that he's anish kares for neglecting to address his needs and taking care of his bris milah and bringing the korban Pesach. So what do you see? Alma. Rami chayuv alei. Apparently even a person who in his current state is not yet roi, he has to go and take care of himself, to enable himself for what he needs to do. He needs to get a bris milah to be able to bring a korban Pesach. So getting back to Hazah, Rabbah was the one who says, you know why you can't do Hazah, the Efer Para, for a Tmei Meis, because he might carry it through the street. What's wrong with carrying through the street? He can do the Machshirim to enable the mitzvah. Well, that's only when a person is roi in his current state, and then he's chayiv. But a person who's tameh is not yet roi, because technically he can't bring the korban Pesach, so he's not chayiv. If he's not chayiv, then there's no reason to allow malacha for his sake. That's why you cannot do Hazah on Shabbos. Abai says, I just proved from a brayso, even Arel, who neglects his responsibilities, gets kares. Apparently, even though he's an Arel, and in his current state cannot conceivably bring the korban Pesach, he has to go take care of himself. Get his bris milah. Apparently, even if he's not yet roi, he is chayiv. If that's the case, then why can't you do hazah for its meis to enable him to take part in the korban Pesach? What are we concerned? He might carry through the street? So be it. You can do a malacha, according to Rabbi Eliezer. Even a machshir mitzvah is derech Shabbos to enable a mitzvah, to enable this fellow to bring this Korban Pesach. Because even though he's tummy, he's still chayiv, just as this Arla is chayiv. So that takes us back to the question. Why does Rabbi Lezer agree that you can't do Hazah? Amar Rabba, says Rabba like this. The reason why, according to Rabbi Lezer, you can't do Hazah, and the reason is because we're concerned about doing Malacha. The reason is because he doesn't need Hazah. It's not necessary. Because Savar Rabbi Lezer, we're going to learn later on the Masechtas Machlokes regarding a person who touched the sheretz. So it's a one-day tumah. It's Erev Pesach. He has this one-day tumah, but tonight he can eat the Korban Pesach. The question is, can this fellow send his Korban Pesach to the Azor? Can we be makir of Korban Pesach on his behalf? He's currently tummy. He hadn't yet gone to the mikveh, but we know that tonight he'll be tar. We have machlokes. And Rabbi Lezer holds, because Rabbi Lezer, ein sheichtem v'zoiken al tamei sheretz. A person who's a tamei sheretz, you can't do shchita or zrika on his Korban Pesach. So you cannot bring a Korban Pesach in this state. Now we also know that whenever an individual is prevented from bringing the Korban Pesach, he's a Tmei Meis, etc. A tzibur doesn't have that restriction. We learned that earlier that a tzibur can bring the Pesach B'tumah. V'kol she'ilu b'yachad nitcha. Every situation where a yachad is pushed away from the Pesach Rishon, such as a Tmei Meis, a Tmei Sheretz, but tzibur avdi b'tumah. The tzibur, the public, can proceed and bring the Korban Pesach even b'tumah. So suppose the tzibur happens to be Tmei Mesim on their 7th day, in which case they'll be roy tonight, or they're Tmei Sheretz. They don't have to bother being toivel or getting the hazah. They can bring the Korban Pesach b'tumah, because that's the formula. When a yachid gets pushed away, the tzibur can do their Pesach b'tumah. That's number one. Number two, you meant to know that everything that applies, every chiyuv, every Korban Pesach related obligation that applies to a tzibur applies to a yachid. It's all one collective chiyuv. Something which does not apply to the tzibur, a chiyuv which doesn't apply to the tzibur, doesn't apply to the yachid as well. Rashi says that the Korban Pesach was a mitzvah, a collective mitzvah, yachad l'chol Yisrael. So it's one collective chiyuv to all. So that takes us to the next element in our equation. So the first thing was that a yachid who is a tamei sheretz, or likewise if he's on the 7th, he's holding at the 7th day of his tumas meis, in which case tonight, at the Seder night, he's technically right to eat the Korban Pesach. He can't bring a Korban Pesach while he's tamei, before he was toivel, before he got the hazah, the Efer Par. But since a yachid gets pushed away, a tzibur can proceed freely. Because that's the equation. When a yachid gets pushed away, the tzibur can do betumah. That's the next step. The third step is v'chol milsa de isa b'tzibur isa b'yachid. Anything, any obligation, any chiyuv, a Korban Pesach related, that applies to the tzibur, applies to the yachid. V'chol milsa de lesa b'tzibur, lesa b'yachid. However, something which doesn't apply to the tzibur won't apply to the yachid as well. Because the yachid and the tzibur go hand in hand when it comes to Korban Pesach obligations. Explains the Gemara. If so, we can understand the difference between the din of an oral, where Rabbi Lezer tells us clearly that an oral who neglects his chiyuv, who doesn't run to the mile to take care of his orla and proceeds to the Korban Pesach, he gets curse. What's the difference between that and a tamei meis on his 7th day, where we say we don't allow hazah to enable him to bring his Korban Pesach? What's the difference between one and the other? That's what we're trying to understand. Explains the Gemara. Based on this introduction, we can very easily understand the difference. Arelis, when it comes to Arla, the equally tziba arel nenu. Suppose the entire crowd are arelim. Amrina luhu kumu muhu l'nafshaychu. We tell them, get up, go run to the mile, do a bris milah, va'avidi pischan, and go proceed to Korban Pesach. So they have a chiv to do a milah. If that's the case, since this chiv applies to the rabbin, applies to the yachid as well. Yachid nami. Amrina le kumo. We tell the yachid as well, get up, do the milah, va'avid pischa, and do your Pesach. Vilei mo, va'avid pischa. And if he neglects to do milah and do his Pesach, onish kares. Then he gets kares. So just as the tzibur is chayiv, the yachid is chayiv. That explains the brayso Rabbi Lezer says that an oral gets kares. However, when it comes to tumah, such as a tummy mace on the seventh day, which was the discussion earlier in the Gemara, the hazah on that tummy mace. When it comes to that, it has a different halach. Tumah the ikule tzibur tmein ninu. Suppose the entire tzibur were tmein. Loy madinan alayim. They don't have to bother sprinkling the efer par on them. Oh, they have to be tumah. They can proceed and do the Karban Pesach b'tumah. Hey, tzibur can bring Karban Pesach b'tumah. If that's the case, yachid nami potter. The yachid as well as potter. He doesn't have to bother getting the hazah to enable him to bring the Karban Pesach. Because only a chiv which applies to the Rabbim applies to the yachid. This chiv doesn't apply to the Rabbim. It doesn't apply to the yachid as well. If that's the case, then we don't allow it to be done on Shabbos. There's no reason to override Shabbos to be mazah the efer para on the yachid. So you're working with a formula that only a chiv which applies to the Rabbim applies to the yachid? Is that so? We have a glaring example which contradicts this formula. Very Pesach Sheni. The lessei b'tzibur v'yesei b'yachid. Look, Pesach Sheni doesn't apply to the tzibur. A tzibur can never bring Pesach Sheni. And a yachid can. Amalei, Shani Hasa. Difference there is. The Amalei tzibur b'rishon. You know why a yachid can ever bring a Pesach Sheni? It's not an independent entity from Pesach Rishon. It's based on Pesach Rishon. It's only because the tzibur already brought the first Pesach, so the second Pesach is a supplemental process. He can go ahead and be mashlim by bringing the Pesach Sheni. But suppose we have a year where the tzibur, for some reason, couldn't bring the Pesach Rishon. You know what? The Pesach Sheni won't be brought either. So the entire concept that a yachid brings the Pesach Sheni is based on the fact that the tzibur brings the Rishon. So the formula holds true. Only a chiyuv which applies to a tzibur applies to a yachid. Meisvei, b'vakashma b'rais. Which again is going to try to disprove this formula. This interdependency between yachid and tzibur. The Brisa says, Yachal lo yehi onish karis. Perhaps the onish karis is only applied Elosh hayatar v'shelo hayav derech chayka, to a person who neglected the Karban Pesach despite the fact that he was tor and he wasn't far away. So if he neglects, he gets karis. What about oral? V'tamei sheretz v'shakal atmeim minayin. Suppose a person was an oral or a tamei and neglected to bring the Karban Pesach. How do we know that he gets kares as well? Talmud Lema, Va'ish. Va'ish ashehutar. Va'ish is coming to include even these cases. Says, well, let's analyze the Brisa. We're coming to be marbe, even a Tommy Sheretz. Midika mahader, a Tommy Sheretz. The fact that the Brisa has to endeavor, make an effort to include the Tommy Sheretz in this context. Because apparently the Brisa is following the Shita that ein sheich the mizerek on Tommy Sheretz. That really a Tommy Sheretz is precluded from the Hakrava. You can't bring a carbon on his behalf. And the Chiddush is, despite the fact that he really has no option at this point to bring the carbon, but he gets curse if he doesn't follow through, because he should have become tar. He should have gone to the mikvah, be toivel, and then bring the carbon. Apparently that's the direction of the Brisa. Why? Because if the Brisa were following the sheet, that even a Tmei Sheretz can technically still send in his carbon, why does the Brisa have to go seek another source to include the Tmei Sheretz in this halacha? That he has the same kares penalty. He's like a tar. Just as a tar can bring his carbon, and therefore he gets kares if he fails to do so, a Tmei Sheretz as well, he can also bring his carbon. And of course, he gets kares if he fails to do so. Why do we have to find another source for a Tmei Sheretz? Apparently, it's because a Tmei Sheretz is different than a tar. He really cannot, in his current state and form, he cannot send in the carbon. And the Chiddush here is that even he will get cursed because he should have looked after himself. He should have been tevel quickly and sent in his carbon. So what do we see? We see very clearly, Alma, we see, Afgav de Leichazi. Leichazi, even though he is not at this point in his current state Roy for the carbon. Ramya, chiyuv yolei. He has a chiyuv to look after himself, to enable himself to bring a carbon and bring the carbon. V'afgad let's say b'tzibur. He said b'yachid, even though this doesn't apply to the tzibur, because the tzibur who is tamei, they just bring the carbon b'tumah. Still in all, this chiyuv applies to a yachid. So you see, the two things are not related. Even if a tzibur is pot, the yachid is chayv. Elam Rava apparently says Rava, we have to look for another solution to our problem. Again, what are we trying to understand? We had a kasha. Why is it that when it comes to haza'ah of the Efer Parah on a person who's a Tmei Meis on his seventh day, even Rabbi Lezer agrees you cannot do that. It can be Deicha Shabbos to enable him to have the carbon Pesach. And when it comes to an Arla, we say, well, you have to quickly remove the Arla to go bring the carbon. What's the difference? Elam Rava Kasav Rabbi Lezer Sheichtim V'Zerek Anatomy Sheretz. He actually holds that you can process the carbon on behalf of a Tamei Sheretz. Who adin, the same thing will apply the Tamei Meis b'Shviyah Shalai. If a Tamei Meis is on the seventh day, he can send in his carbon. So really, technically, this fellow can send in a carbon Pesach. He doesn't need the Hazah. Hazah Lamai. What would be the point and purpose of doing the Hazah? L'achila. To enable him to have the Achila that night. Achila is Pesachim, that doesn't prevent the kashrus of the carbon. That's not mi'akev. It doesn't disqualify the carbon. And therefore there's no justification to be Mechal Shabbos for Hazon. Let him send in his carbon in his current state of Tumah. But certainly, if he's an Arl, and that prevents him from sending in a carbon, he has to remove the Arla to enable himself to bring the carbon. So that explains the difference between Arla and Hazor. Only Rav Ada Abba L'Rav. If that's the case, that he remains a Tamei, Nimtza Pesach Nishchat Shleilo Eichlav. You're telling me you can process the Pesach on his behalf, even though he won't eat tonight, because he's still Tamei. You can't be Shechet a Pesach for the sake of a non-eater. We learned that earlier in the Mishnah, the Gemara there, that it has to be Ishlefi Achlei. The point of the Pesach is to be eaten. This fellow can't eat. He responded, no, Shleilo Eichlav means L'chaylu L'zaken, D'lei Chazi. Doing the shchita for an ill person, a zaken, who physically doesn't have the ability to eat. That's called shleilo echlav. Aval hai, this fellow here, healthy fellow, mixer chazi, physically, technically, he can eat the carbon. The kun hu d'lei masakin, he's not fixed up. Halachically speaking, spiritually, he's not enabled. But practically speaking, he's an eichel. So doing the shchita on his behalf does not constitute shleilo echlav. So conclusion. The Gemara, in its final approach, work with the pshat that the discussion in our Mishnah about Hazah was a reference to Hazah on a Tmei Meis on his seventh day, to enable him to bring the Karm Pesach. Rabbi Akiva brought a raya from there. Look, you see that even a Issa de Rabbanan does not justify Chilul Shabbos. And you yourself, Rabbi Lezer, taught this to me. But the Gemara says he forgot, and Rabbi Akiva was gently reminding him. The Gemara asks, well, why not? Why can't you do Hazah? What's the worst thing that can happen? He'll carry it through the street. That's okay, because you're enabling a mitzvah. And just as the mitzvah is Deicha Shabbos, the preparation is Deicha Shabbos. The Gemara's final approach is, there's no need to do Hazah, because he can bring his carbon as is. Even when he's a Tamei Sheretz, even when he's a Tmei Meis B'Shvi. Therefore, there's no reason to do the Hazah and be Deicha Shabbos. Continues the Gemara, Klal Amar Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva concluded with a rule. No, only something which needs to be done today justifies overriding Shabbos. Amar Rabbi Damarav, Halach Rabbi Akiva. That's how the halacha follows. But Tnan Nami Gabe Mila, Kai Gavna, we have the same discussion by Mila. Klal Amar Rabbi Akiva, Kol Malacha She'ef Shal Asoyis Mer Shabbos. A malacha which could have been done before Shabbos, Eina Deichas HaShabbos. Does not justify Chilul Shabbos. Mila, the actual Mila itself, She'ef Shal Asoyis Mer Shabbos, which could not have been done before Shabbos, Deichas HaShabbos. Well, Rabbi Damarav, here as well, Rabbi says the name of Rav, Halach Rabbi Akiva. What's Shricha? Why the repetition? Why do we have to quote Rav in both places? That the halacha follows Rabbi Akiva. Both are needed, says the Gemara. The Yashmin Gabe Pesach. Because if we would only learn this by Pesach, I would say, Hasam Hu de machshira mitzvah ledocha Shabbos. Yeah, it's by Pesach that the preparations which aren't really necessary are not Docha Shabbos. Mishum de lo nichrasu alei shlosh brisas. Because we don't have the concept of 13 brisas connected to Pesach. Aval Mila, when it comes to Mila, which has that element, we find 13 references to the word bris in the parsha of Bris by Avram Avinu. So it has that added element. Perhaps over there, even something which was unavoidable, is the Shabbos due to its higher standing. That's why he has to tell us, no, even by Mila, only something unavoidable is the Shabbos, but not something avoidable. If he would have taught us this halacha by Mila, I would say, Hasam, hu de machshira mitzvah, lo docha Shabbos. It's like a curse. It's only over there that doesn't justify, because there's no curse. The father does the Mila tomorrow instead of today, there's no curse. Aval Pesach, they get curse. However, by Pesach, if he neglects, there's curse generated. Perhaps it's more severe, and even the unnecessary preparations of the Shabbos, Sricha, that's why he has to inform us in both cases. Not only by Mila, by Pesach as well, only something unavoidable is Docha Shabbos. Continues the Mishnah. We know not only is there a Korban Pesach, but together, accompanying the Korban Pesach, is something called the Korban Chagiga. A Masai, maybe Chagiga Imay. When does one bring a Chagiga together with the Korban Pesach? Bizman Shuba B'chol. It's very restricted and limited. It's only, number one, when the Pesach is a weekday Pesach. B'tahara, when it's brought b'tahara. So when they tzibur atame and bring the Pesach b'tumah, you don't bring a chagiga. Ubemot. When the meat of the Korban Pesach is insufficient to provide the full needs of the chabur, in which case we want to add the other Korban, the chagiga, so they can fill up on that and eat the Korban Pesach as a dessert, which adds chashivas and prominence to the Korban Pesach. However, says the Mishnah, ubezman shubah b'Shabbos. The Korban Pesach should be a Shabbos Korban, b'meruba, or when the meat of the Korban Pesach is enough and sufficient to satisfy the need. Ubetuma, or when it's brought betuma, ein mevinim chagiga, you don't bring a chagiga. What is a chagiga? Chagiga is a ba min atzoin, min abakar. You can use all types of animals for the chagiga. Tzoin, sheep, the goat, min abakar, the large, heavy-sized animals, the livestock, min akvasim, from sheep, min izim, from goats, min aschor, min kevis. So we don't discriminate, as opposed to the Korban Pesach, which can only come from the tzoin, and it needs to be a ben zachar. And finally, says the Mishnah, "V'na'acheles l'shnei yamim l'ayla echad." The Korban Chagig is eaten for a duration of 2 days and 1 night. My Tana, the Tana Chagiga. What was mentioned? What introduction was mentioned that led us into the discussion regarding Chagig? Whoever mentioned Chagig? Says the Mishnah. Says the Gemara, because in the first Mishnah, Tana hakavasei v'asel dachi Shabbos, that the transporting the arkava, transporting the Korban Pesach through the street, or have a asay bringing it from outside the tchum, doesn't override Shabbos. So once we made reference to something which can't be done on Shabbos, we proceeded that Chagiga also is restricted by Shabbos. Ktani nami Chagiga lo dachi Shabbos. V'achika Amar, or some have a girsa Amar nami. So on account of that, the Mishnah went into the whole list of limitations. A Masai, Mavini, Chagiga. When is Chagiga brought with the Pesach? Bezman Shubah b'chayil, b'tahar b'muat. We have these 3 conditions met. We can conclude from this, since we have so many restrictions on the Korban Chagiga, apparently Chagiga is aba'asa lav chayvei. It's not a chayv. Taisus explains, it's not a chayv min ha-Torah, because otherwise, why would it be so limited? If it would be a chiv min ha-Torah, Taisi b'Shabbos, it would come even on Shabbos. V'teisi b'meruba, it would come even when there's an abundance of meat from the Korban Pesach. V'teisi b'tumah, even when the Korban Pesach was brought b'tumah, it will be brought as well. Apparently, it's only chiv d'Rabbanan, and is limited to only when all 3 conditions are met. Says the Gemara, okay, we understand why you can bring it on Shabbos, because it's a chiv d'Rabbanan, it's not a Shabbos. We understand why you can't bring it b'tumah. Ubemut miu my time asil. But why does it only come when there is little meat available from the Korban Pesach? Why is that a stipulation? Kedesani, as went in the Brisa. Chagiga haba ima Pesach. The Chagiga which is brought together with the Pesach, nechelas tchila. That's eaten first, as the main dish. Kadeshi hey Pesach nechal ala soiva. So that the Pesach will be eaten ala soiva when a person is somewhat full and satiated. In which case the hunger pangs have already subsided. He's not famished. He'll approach the Korban Pesach with more dignity, which adds chashivas and prominence to the Korban Pesach. And Rashi actually later says that the same thing applies to other korbanos as well. You might eat it ala soiva, relaxed, laid back, as a sort of dessert to the meal. So when the Korban Pesach has only a bit of meat, and is not sufficient to supply the entire needs of the Bnei Chabura, in which case they'll eat it when they'll be famished and hungry. So therefore you bring the Chagiga, which will be used as the main dish, and the Korban Pesach, which is small in volume, will provide the dessert, the afikomen. Okay, time for a brief chazara. We began with a reference to the Machlokes Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Yehoda. Rabbi Lezer holds that any machshira mitzvah adeicha Shabbos. So just as the mitzvah itself, the Korban Pesach, or as we learned, the Milah, is deicha Shabbos, anything which is a preparation for that mitzvah, even if that preparation could have been done before Shabbos. Bringing the knife through the street for the Milah, even forming the knife. Anything in preparation of these mitzvahs is deicha Shabbos. Whereas Rabbi Yehoda, and later on we see Rabbi Akiva also, held that no, only something which could not have been done before Shabbos can be done on Shabbos, but something avoidable does not allow the chiyah of Shabbos. Rabbi Akiva was trying to hint to Rabbi Lezer, you yourself taught me that hazah on Shabbos is asr, even to enable the achil of the Korban Pesach. And the Gemara analyzed this term hazah. What are we're referring to? Hazah of Truma? No, the Gemara said we're speaking about hazah of Pesach. Why indeed cannot it not be done on Shabbos? And the reason is because it's not needed. The Gemara says that even a Tamei Meis can send this carbon. A Tamei Meis on the seventh day can send this carbon to the Azara. So just because he can't eat it, that doesn't justify hazah. Just bring the carbon in his state of tum. The Gemara concluded, even though if you're not maza the eifa part, he won't be able to eat it. That's okay. Achilas Pesachim is not me'akev. What about the fact that you're doing the shechita for a person who can't eat? He could eat. He's prevented halachically from eating. That's not kosher loichov. And we concluded that the same concept that we find in our Gemara, we find by Milah, and the conclusion is that halacha is like Rabbi Akiva, that only a malacha which could not have been done before Shabbos will be done on Shabbos. And we concluded with the Korban Chagiga, which accompanies the Pesach, in order that the achila of the Pesach should be al hasoiva. So first you eat the Chagiga, and then the Pesach in a dignified manner. And the Pesach is only brought when three conditions are met. When it's a weekday Erev Pesach, when you bring in the Korban Pesach b'tahara, and as we said, if the Korban Pesach doesn't satisfy the needs of the Mechabura, then you first bring the Chagiga, you have them eat the Chagiga, and then, after the main dish, you conclude with the Korban Pesach. Be well and much hatzlacha.